The protections that immigrants get is just getting attacked. I mean, the administration itself is attacking daily, but seeing this from the courts, it takes the next level, and there's not much recourse at this point when it's such a major decision to deal with it. And you can't even be comfortable with being a naturalized citizen with a denaturalization task force, and they sell it as if they're going to go after some sort of murder or something like that. But they're going to pick on small time people who can't defend themselves. That's how it usually happens. So there's massive insecurity in being an immigrant in the United States, which makes it really hard until Congress really steps in and does something, which is always silent on these matters. And I think we're gonna have to wait a couple more years or a decade until Congress actually does something helpful immigration. And to my view, helpful is it's for the whole society. Just kind of let people live their lives when it's minor things.
Mhm. Well, this stop time rule is a good example of the kind of fix that requires legislation. I think it requires legislation at this time, and it's required legislation ever since the law was enacted in 96. There have been issues with the stop time rule. And when people understand the rule, there has been broad bipartisan agreement that this stop time rule should be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, things happening in Congress depends on a big bill and having the momentum to have a law changed, which I think could happen. I think it could happen for a variety of reasons. And this particular issue, it's interesting because the provision at issue in Barton, this very technical issue that stops the clock in the first 7 years, even if you live here with nothing sort of moment for many, many years afterwards. That is something that wasn't in the House bill and it wasn't in the Senate bill in 1996. So as bad as the 1996 law was, these were not part of the 1996 law. And so they came into the law in the conference committee. Now, if you sort of have studied high school civics, you think a conference committee is the members of the House and the members of the Senate. They come together, they sit down, they talk through their differences, and they develop something. Well, that's not how it actually works a lot of the time. Often what happens in conference is done by staff. In this particular conference, the Republicans that controlled the conference did not even allow the Democrats to participate. And at the end of the conference, only Senator Feinstein signed the conference report. So this provision was added in the conference report. It didn't go through the House or the Senate. It was and in the conference report, when they described the provision, they described it as something that made the person deportable, which is now what the Supreme Court has said is not necessary. It then went in front of the two houses, and this was when Clinton was president, and there had been a shutdown of the government the year before, and it was part of this omnibus budget deal which got enacted. So the origins of this are that nobody thought about this except whoever wrote it in the conference report, and it just became the law. And when people started looking at it afterwards, there was a bipartisan effort to fix a number of the 1996 laws. And on this particular provision that was at issue in Barton, they would have just eliminated it. I mean, leading Republican congressional figures like Henry Hyde and James Sensenbrenner would have just eliminated it. So it's a very strange thing that this provision that nobody intended in the first place, that nobody defended a few years later, has now been read by the Supreme Court in the most extremely harsh way imaginable, in an opinion that I think is not supportable.